Close your eyes and imagine this. You've spent decades searching for a lost tomb. You finally find the door, but the moment you reach for the handle, your blood runs cold. Why? Because in archaeology, some seals weren't broken by time. They were designed to kill. From toxic mercury rivers to ancient plagues frozen in lead, today we're uncovering the artifacts that are so dangerous, scientists are literally too afraid to open them. Are you ready to see what lies behind the forbidden? In July 2018, construction workers in the Sidi Gabr district of Alexandria, Egypt, were doing what they always do, digging into the foundation of a new building. But 5 meters below the surface, their shovels hit something that shouldn't have been there. It wasn't a pipe, it wasn't a rock. It was a massive, pitch-black granite box. Measuring nearly 9 feet long and weighing a staggering 30 tons, this was the largest sarcophagus ever discovered in Alexandria. It had been sealed for over 2,000 years. Immediately, the world went into a frenzy. On social media, theories spread like wildfire. Was it Alexander the Great? Was it a cursed priest? People began using the hashtag sarcophagus as if it were the trailer for a new horror movie. But while the public was dreaming of ancient gold and mummified kings, archaeologists were genuinely nervous. They weren't afraid of a supernatural curse. They were afraid of what 2 millennia of biological decay, trapped in an airtight container, would do once it met the oxygen of the 21st century. When the Ministry of Antiquities finally decided to crack the seal, they didn't do it with a celebration. They did it with masks, gloves, and a heavy dose of caution. As the lid was lifted just a few inches, a smell hit the team. A stench so powerful, so putrid, that workers had to flee the site immediately. What was inside wasn't a king, it wasn't gold. It was a nightmare of mummy juice. Sewage from a nearby building had leaked into the sarcophagus through a tiny crack, mixing with the remains of 3 skeletons. For centuries, these bodies had been fermenting in a dark chemical soup of human decay and wastewater. Scientists were faced with a biohazard. They had to drain the red liquid while wearing full protective gear. But here's where the scientific fear turns into a fascinating insight. Despite the disgusting conditions, they found that one of the skulls had a hole, the result of trepanation. This means that thousands of years ago, these people were performing brain surgery. So the black sarcophagus didn't release a curse that ended the world. Instead, it released a biological time bomb that reminded us why we wear masks in the field. It taught us that sometimes the dangerous part of an artifact isn't the magic inside, but the gruesome way nature reclaims what we try to hide away in stone. It was a literal toxic cocktail of history, and opening it was a gamble that almost literally knocked the breath out of the modern world. Deep beneath the rolling hills of Changping, near Beijing, lies a city of the dead. This is the site of the Ming dynasty tombs, the final resting place of 13 emperors who once ruled the Middle Kingdom with absolute power. While some of these sites have been turned into bustling tourist attractions, there are parts of this necropolis that remain shrouded in silence. Doors that have been shut for 6 centuries. Why? To understand the fear, we have to look back at the 1950s, when archaeologists decided to open the Dingling tomb, the burial place of the Wanli Emperor. It took them a year just to find the entrance. When they finally broke through the heavy, stone, self-locking gates, they thought they had won. But they weren't prepared for what happened next. The moment the outside air rushed into the oxygen-deprived chambers, a heartbreaking tragedy occurred. Priceless silk robes, exquisite tapestries, and ancient scrolls that had survived since the 1600s literally turned to dust before their eyes. The change in humidity and chemical composition of the air acted like an invisible fire, consuming history in seconds. But it's not just the preservation of silk that keeps modern scientists away from the remaining unopened tombs. It's something much more sinister. Ancient Chinese burial customs were designed to protect the emperor in the afterlife. And they didn't rely on ghosts, they relied on engineering. Legends speak of intricate booby traps, self-firing crossbows designed to impale anyone who stepped on the wrong stone. But the most terrifying defense is invisible. Geological surveys and historical texts suggest that these tombs were intentionally flooded with mercury. To the ancient Chinese, mercury represented the flowing rivers and oceans of the world, a symbol of eternal life. To a modern scientist, it is a neurotoxic nightmare. In a sealed, unventilated stone vault, that mercury evaporates over centuries, creating a concentrated vapor that can kill a human within minutes of inhalation. Opening the remaining Ming tombs isn't just an archaeological challenge. It's a high-stakes mission against a silent, chemical assassin. Until we develop technology that can stabilize an entire underground atmosphere and neutralize toxic vapors without touching the artifacts, the emperors of the Ming dynasty will continue to sleep in the dark. For now, the risk of losing the history, or the lives of those trying to uncover it, is simply too high. We have realized that sometimes the greatest act of respect we can show to the past is to leave the door closed, acknowledging that some secrets are protected by a lethality we aren't yet ready to face. In 1986, near the shores of the Black Sea in Romania, workers were testing the ground to build a power plant. They bored a hole into the earth, expecting nothing but dirt and rock. Instead, they punched a hole into a world that hadn't seen a ray of sunlight in over 5.5 million years. Welcome to Movile Cave, a place so hostile, so alien, that it challenges everything we know about life on Earth. Imagine a place where the atmosphere is thick with the smell of rotten eggs. That's hydrogen sulfide. The oxygen levels here are half of what you're breathing right now, and the carbon dioxide levels are 100 times higher. For a human, entering this cave without a specialized rebreather is a death sentence. Within minutes, your lungs would fail and your brain would shut down. But the danger isn't just the air. It's the isolation. Because Movile Cave has been sealed off by thick layers of clay since before our ancestors even walked upright, life here evolved in total darkness. When scientists finally mustered the courage to descend through the narrow shafts and swim through the sulfuric waters, they found something that looked like it belonged on a moon of Jupiter. They discovered creatures that don't exist anywhere else on the planet: pale, translucent spiders, eyeless water scorpions, and strange, ghostly centipedes. Since there is no sunlight, there are no plants, no photosynthesis. Instead, the entire ecosystem runs on chemosynthesis, bacteria that turn toxic chemicals from the water into food. Scientists are terrified of opening this cave for too long, and for a very good reason. We aren't just afraid of what the cave might do to us, we are afraid of what we will do to it. The moment we open a seal like this, we introduce outside microbes, oxygen, and light. To the 48 unique species living down there, our very breath is a pollutant. It is a biological time capsule so fragile that a single sneeze could cause a mass extinction of a lineage older than humanity itself. Every time a researcher enters, they have to wear airtight suits and pass through multiple pressure locks. It's more like a space mission than an archaeological dig. Movile Cave remains one of the most dangerous and restricted sites on Earth because it is a reminder. There are places on this planet where we are the aliens. It's a world that thrives on what kills us, and a world that could be destroyed by the very things that keep us alive. It sits there beneath the Romanian soil, a dark, toxic, and silent kingdom that is better left behind a sealed door. In the world of archaeology, finding a wooden coffin is exciting. Finding a stone sarcophagus is a miracle. But finding a lead coffin? That is a warning. Throughout Europe and the Middle East, construction crews and researchers occasionally stumble upon these heavy, anthropoid-shaped metal boxes. They are gray, dull, and incredibly heavy. But the most striking thing about them isn't their weight. It's the fact that they were designed to be airtight. Lead was the premium containment material of the ancient world. It didn't just show status, it acted as a permanent seal. And that is exactly what terrifies modern epidemiologists. You see, when a body is sealed in a lead-lined coffin, the normal process of decomposition is altered. In an airtight, anaerobic environment, soft tissues can be preserved for centuries, or even millennia. But along with those tissues, something else stays alive: pathogens. Imagine a time capsule, But instead of letters and photos, it's filled with smallpox, anthrax, or the bubonic plague. Scientists fear that by cracking the seal of a 1600-year-old lead coffin found under a cathedral or a Roman ruin, we might inadvertently release a resurrection of a disease that the modern human immune system is no longer prepared to fight. We are talking about strains of viruses that have been mutating in a dark metallic vacuum, waiting for the one thing they need to jump back to life, a breath of fresh air. Take the case of the lead coffins found under Notre Dame Cathedral during its restoration. The air inside those boxes is a literal biological snapshot of the Middle Ages. If the seal is compromised by a clumsy shovel or a curious researcher without the right equipment, it could trigger a localized outbreak of a zombie virus, not the Hollywood kind, but a very real, very ancient biological killer. This is why when a lead coffin is found today, the mood on the excavation site shifts from excitement to extreme caution. You'll see archaeologists suddenly replaced by experts in hazmat suits. They use remote sensors, X-rays, and endoscopes to peer inside without ever breaking the vacuum. We are too afraid to simply open these artifacts because we don't know who or what is still breathing inside. It's a delicate dance between our hunger for history and our survival instinct. Because sometimes the dead are buried in lead for a reason. They weren't just being laid to rest, they were being quarantined from the future. And that future is us. Deep in the Altai Mountains of Siberia, there is a land where the ground never thaws. It is a natural deep freezer that has guarded the secrets of the ancient Paziric culture for over 2,000 years. But in 1993, a team of archaeologists uncovered something that the locals begged them to leave alone. The Siberian Ice Maiden. She was found buried in a subterranean chamber lined with wood and filled with ice. When scientists began the delicate process of melting the ice, they found a woman so perfectly preserved that the intricate, flowing tattoos of mythical creatures on her skin were still vibrant. She looked like she had simply fallen asleep yesterday. But this discovery didn't bring celebration to the local people. To the Altai elders, she is the Princess of Ukok, a sacred guardian of the gateway to the underworld. They believe that her removal disturbed a spiritual balance. And strangely enough, as they flew her body out by helicopter, the engine failed, leading to a near-fatal emergency landing. Then came the earthquakes. For the locals, the danger is supernatural, a curse triggered by disturbing the dead. However, for the scientific community, the curse is much more physical. As the global climate warms and the Siberian permafrost begins to melt, we are facing a biological nightmare. You see, the permafrost isn't just ice. It's a graveyard of prehistoric bacteria and viruses. When we open these frozen tombs, we aren't just looking at mummies, we are opening nature's freezer. Scientists are terrified because these bodies could be carrying strains of the plague, or even older, unknown pathogens that have been extinct for millennia. These microbes aren't dead, they are just suspended. The moment they are exposed to the sun and the air, they can reanimate. Opening a Siberian mummy isn't just an archaeological dig. It's a game of Russian roulette with the planet's health. We are too afraid to open more of these sites because we don't have the technology to guarantee that a 20,500-year-old virus won't hitch a ride on a scientist's glove and start a global pandemic that we have no cure for. The Princess of Ukok was eventually returned to her homeland, but she remains behind a glass seal in a museum, never to be fully unpacked. She stands as a cold, tattooed reminder that some things are frozen in time for a reason. Sometimes, the earth hides things not because they are lost, but because they are too dangerous to be found. In 1944, during the chaos of World War II, soldiers digging a trench near the town of Kazanlak in Bulgaria stumbled upon a brick wall. They weren't looking for history, but they found a masterpiece. Behind that wall lay a Thracian tomb dating back to the 4th century BC. It belonged to a high-ranking ruler, and inside it held a secret that has kept archaeologists in a state of constant anxiety for nearly 80 years. When you step inside, or rather, when you would step inside if you were allowed, you aren't greeted by gold or traps. You are greeted by color. The dome is covered in frescoes so vibrant, so lifelike, that they look like they were painted this morning. There is a scene of a funeral banquet. A man and a woman holding hands in a gesture of eternal farewell, surrounded by musicians and galloping horses. It is, quite simply, the finest example of Hellenistic art in the world. But here is why scientists are too afraid to open this tomb to the public. The danger here isn't a curse or a poison. It is us. You see, these frescoes have survived for over 2,000 years in a very specific, sealed environment with constant humidity and temperature. The moment a human being enters the chamber, everything changes. The carbon dioxide in your breath, the moisture from your skin, and even the slight increase in heat from your body act like acid on these ancient pigments. Within hours of exposure to a crowd of people, these 2,300-year-old masterpieces would begin to flake, fade, and eventually dissolve into gray dust. The danger is the fragility of beauty. We are so afraid of losing this window into the Thracian soul that the original tomb is now permanently sealed behind a high-tech, climate-controlled steel door. Scientists only enter under the strictest protocols, wearing protective gear just to check the sensors. To satisfy the world's curiosity, the Bulgarian government built a full-scale replica right next door for tourists. But the original? It remains a silent, dark sanctuary. It is a heartbreaking paradox of archaeology. To see the art is to destroy it. We have to keep the door closed to ensure that the memory of these ancient people stays alive. Kazanlak teaches us a different kind of fear, the fear of our own touch. It reminds us that sometimes the most dangerous thing in an ancient tomb isn't the dead king or a hidden trap, it's the living, breathing observer. Deep in the heart of St. Francisville, Louisiana, stands a grand antebellum mansion known as the Myrtles Plantation. It's framed by ancient oak trees draped in Spanish moss, looking like a picture-perfect southern dream. But inside, leaning against a wall in the main hallway, is an artifact that many visitors refuse to even look at. It's a large, gold-framed mirror. At first glance, it looks normal, until you notice the streaks, the dark smudges, and the faint hand-shaped marks that seem to be trapped inside the glass. The legend behind this mirror is as dark as the shadows in the hallway. It is said to contain the spirits of Chloe, a slave, and the family she allegedly poisoned, Sarah Woodruff and her 2 children. According to local folklore, when a family member died, custom dictated that all mirrors in the house must be covered to prevent their souls from being trapped in the glass. But on that tragic day in the 1800s, this one mirror was missed. Now you might think, that's just a ghost story. Why would a scientist be afraid of a mirror? The answer is twofold. First, there is the limonite effect. For decades, staff have tried to clean those strange marks off the glass. They've used every chemical imaginable, but the smudges always return from the inside. From a historical and chemical perspective, we are looking at an artifact that is physically breaking down in a way we can't fully explain. Some researchers believe the silver nitrate backing of these 19th century mirrors, combined with the extreme humidity of Louisiana, has created a toxic oxidation process. Touching or breaking an old mirror like this could expose you to high levels of mercury and lead vapors that have been stewing behind that glass for 200 years. But there is a second, deeper fear: the psychological danger. Paranormal researchers and psychologists study the Myrtles mirror because of the Bloody Mary effect. The human brain, when staring into a distorted old mirror in low light, begins to hallucinate. It's called the Troxler effect. Your mind fills in the dark smudges with faces and figures. For scientists, the danger of opening or dismantling this mirror isn't just the toxic chemicals, it's the risk of destroying a perfect case study of human belief. If we fix the mirror, we lose the mystery. If we break it, we might breathe in the poisons of the past. So the mirror remains on the wall. Scientists are too afraid to touch it because it sits at the intersection of chemistry and the supernatural. It is a portal to a dark history that, whether through toxic vapors or psychological tricks, still has the power to make your blood run cold. Would you dare to look into it after the lights go out? Off the coast of Nova Scotia, Canada, there is a small, tree-covered island that holds the record for the world's longest and most expensive treasure hunt. For over 200 years, everyone from local farmers to American presidents has been obsessed with a single spot on this land known as the Money Pit. But this isn't just a hole in the ground. It is an archaeological enigma that scientists and engineers are terrified to fully open, because it was designed to kill anyone who tries. It all started in 1795 when a young man found a circular depression in the ground and began to dig. Every 10 feet he hit a wooden platform made of oak. As the years went on and deeper excavations began, the pit revealed something strange. Layers of charcoal, coconut fiber, and even a stone tablet with a cryptic inscription that supposedly translated to, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. But, just as explorers thought they were inches away from the ultimate prize, the Money Pit struck back. At around 90 feet, the shaft suddenly and violently flooded with seawater. When they tried to pump the water out, it just kept coming back. Why? Because the creators of the pit were master engineers. They had constructed a series of complex flood tunnels, hidden finger drains connected to the ocean. The moment you remove the weight of the dirt, the water pressure is released, turning the treasure vault into a drowning chamber. Scientists today are baffled by the sophistication. How did someone centuries ago manage to build a hydraulic trap that still works after 200 years of saltwater erosion? We are too afraid to open Oak Island in a traditional sense because the ground has become a Swiss cheese of failed shafts and collapsed tunnels. Geologists warn that the entire area is structurally unstable. One wrong move with heavy machinery and the entire historical record, and any potential treasure could be crushed or washed into the Atlantic forever. But the real danger isn't just the water or the collapsing dirt, it's the cost. 6 people have already died in the search, leading many to believe the island demands a 7th sacrifice before it gives up its secrets. Today, we use high-tech sonar, GPS mapping, and deep-sea drilling, but the Money Pit remains unconquered. It's a masterpiece of defensive engineering. We are afraid to open it because it forces us to admit that our ancestors might have been cleverer than we are, and that some treasures are protected by a genius that we still don't fully understand. Deep within the humid, emerald jungles of the Philippines lies a mystery that has cost thousands of lives and fueled decades of conspiracy theories. It's known as Yamashita's Gold. Legend has it that during the final days of World War II, Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, ordered the burial of a staggering fortune. We are talking about gold bars, priceless gemstones, and ancient artifacts looted from across Southeast Asia, hidden in a network of underground tunnels and sea caves. But here is the terrifying reality that keeps modern treasure hunters and historians awake at night. This isn't just a chest of gold waiting to be found. It is a massive, decentralized death trap. According to historical accounts and survivors, the Japanese military didn't just bury the gold. They sealed it with lethal ingenuity. They used their finest engineers to rig these tunnels with thousands of tons of leftover World War II ordnance. We are talking about tripwired sea mines, pressure-sensitive landmines, and, most horrifyingly, canisters of mustard gas and cyanide. Scientists and recovery teams are terrified to open these suspected sites because they are literal ticking time bombs. In the decades since the war, the humid jungle environment has made these explosives incredibly unstable. A single vibration from a modern drill or the slight movement of a stone could trigger a chain reaction that would collapse entire mountainsides. But the danger isn't just physical, it's chemical. There are reports of water traps where the gold is submerged in pools of sulfuric acid or laced with cyanide powder that turns into a lethal cloud the moment fresh air hits the vault. In the 1970s, a man named Rogelio Roxas claimed to have found a hidden chamber filled with gold Buddhas and crates of bullion. He was allegedly tortured and his treasure confiscated by the government, adding a layer of political danger to the physical ones. Today, we have satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar that suggest massive metallic anomalies deep underground. But we hesitate We are afraid to open the vaults of Yamashita because we don't know if we are uncovering a fortune or a massacre. It is a reminder that the spoils of war are often guarded by the same violence that collected them. For now, the tiger's gold remains buried, protected by a silent army of rusted mines and poisonous air, waiting for a mistake that would be someone's last. Deep beneath the crushing weight of the Atlantic, or the silent corridors of a Pacific shipwreck, explorers often find the holy grail of maritime archaeology, a sealed, locked chest. It sits there, encrusted in coral and barnacles, looking like something out of a pirate legend. But for a professional recovery team, finding one of these isn't just a moment of triumph, it's a moment of extreme danger. You see, these chests have been sitting under immense pressure for centuries. If a chest is airtight, as many high-quality merchant trunks were, it becomes a pressurized bomb. As it sinks, the wood and metal are compressed, but the real danger happens during the ascent. As a recovery diver brings a sealed chest toward the surface, the external water pressure drops. Inside the chest, ancient gases, produced by the slow anaerobic decomposition of organic materials like silk, leather, or even food, begin to expand rapidly. If the chest is brought up too fast, the internal pressure can exceed the strength of the rotted wood and rusted iron straps. The result? The chest doesn't just open, it detonates. It can literally explode on the deck of a ship, sending shards of 300-year-old oak and metal flying like shrapnel. But there's more. Even if the chest doesn't explode, the air inside is a toxic cocktail. Scientists are terrified of what they call the breath of the dead. Inside these sealed environments, oxygen has long been replaced by concentrated hydrogen sulfide and methane. One deep breath of the air escaping a freshly opened sunken chest can cause immediate respiratory failure. And then there is the tragedy of preservation. We are afraid to open these chests because the moment we do, we might be the cause of their destruction. Many of these artifacts have reached a delicate equilibrium with the salt water. The second they hit the oxygen-rich air of the surface, a process of rapid oxidation begins. Artifacts that survived 400 years under the sea can crumble into dust in less than 40 minutes. This is why today, when a chest is found, we don't just open it. We keep it submerged in specialized tanks of seawater. We use X-rays to look through the wood and robotic arms to delicately stabilize the contents. We are too afraid to simply turn the key because we know that the secrets inside are protected by a deadly combination of physics and time. To open a sunken chest is to challenge the ocean itself, and the ocean rarely gives up its treasures without a fight. In an age where we want every answer, these artifacts teach us one vital lesson: respect. Sometimes the cost of a secret is simply too high for the present to pay. We leave these doors closed not out of weakness, but to protect history for a future that's ready for it. Because some mysteries are more powerful and much safer when they remain unsolved. I'm Enigma Explained, and remember, some boxes are better left shut.